That was weird. I was sort of confused by that. Now, I actually asked somebody about it, and they told me that it was a symbolic vote, some symbolic vote to recognize or a symbolic vote to annex the West Bank. I mean, what I would say to that is when I asked about it, somebody told me that it was a political stunt, that it had no practical significance. It was purely symbolic. I mean, look, if it was a political stunt, it was a very stupid political stunt, and I personally take some insult to it. The West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. The policy of the Trump administration is that the West Bank will not be annexed by Israel. That will continue to be our policy. And if people want to take symbolic votes, they can do that.
Trying so hard, and it's not working. They've even now started imitating me, of all people. They want to imitate me. And they start using foul language, but they use too much of it. You know, you can't use the F word 7 times in one sentence. It doesn't work. It might work once every 7 news conferences, but you can't do it. You can't do it 7 times in one sentence. So I don't know. They're really they're in big trouble. That party. Go ahead,
Mr. President. Some alleged smugglers have survived some of these recent strikes and been sent back to their home country. If they're terrorists, why not just arrest and detain them?
Go ahead.
2 points on that. First, when I served in Iraq in 2005 and 2006, we used to, in sort of a gallows humor way, talk about the Iraqi catch and release program, the reality that we would catch a lot of people, hand them over, and then they would be recycled back through, and we'd have to recapture them or attack them again. And that's why changing the dynamic and actually taking kinetic strikes on these boats ought change the psychology of these foreign terrorist organizations. To those 2 that survived the shot on the semi-submersible, think again, compared to Iraq and Afghanistan, the vast majority of people that we captured on the battlefield, we handed over to the home country. Did we always like how it shaped out? Sometimes we did, sometimes we did not. But 99% would go to the Afghan authorities or the Iraqi authorities. So in this case, those 2, they were treated by American medics and handed immediately over to their countries where they came from, hopefully to face prosecution, which is a very standard way of handling something like this.
And you'll do that with future survivors, anyone else who survived?
We've got protocol of how we'll handle it.
Not that guy, he's so hopeless. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yesterday there was a vote at the Knesset on annexing the West Bank. Do you see it as a challenge to your peace efforts?
Could you say that louder, please?
Yes, yesterday there was a vote at the Knesset in Israel on annexing the West Bank. Do you see it as a challenge to your peace efforts?
Will you answer that, please? Because I cannot understand the words you're saying. Where are you from? Where are you from? You're from France. Beautiful accent, but we can't understand what you're saying. Huh?
She said a vote at the Knesset on the West Bank.
The West Bank is, don't worry about the West Bank. Israel's not going to do anything with the West Bank, okay? Don't worry about it. Is that your question? They're not going to do anything with the West Bank. Don't worry about it. Israel's doing very well. They're not going to do anything with it. Yeah, please.
When people decided to start saying the quiet part out loud, then you must know that something is in play. You know, if the Israelis government or their parliamentarians or their lawmakers can bring about something like this in their Knesset and talk about it, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? You know, for far too long, they've gotten away with almost every single thing. You just need to see what they've done in the West Bank with all their illegal settlement they've built and what they've done in Gaza to understand that sometimes, right, when people tell you who they are for the first time, believe them. Believe them. They have always said that they want to clean or clear out Gaza. They want to make it into a heaven for the rich. They want to change the face of Gaza. Remember, Gaza belongs to the Palestinians. And to see someone saying that they will kick you out of your own house bulldoze it down, and turn your property into a heaven for the rich. What does that say about them? What does that say about it? And to make matters worse, right? Sometimes, people will keep this under wrap, right? They won't say it out loud because they know about the pushback that will come from the West. So they won't say it out loud. But when people start saying it out loud, it means they know that they would face no kickback. They would face no repercussion for what they said or what they did. And that is why they will say it. They've weighed the outcome. They've understand what will happen after they said what they wanted to say. And they know for sure that nothing is ever going to happen to them. No matter what they say, nobody's going to do anything. Just saying something like that required a lot of public shaming, public critique, and public distancing from whoever that said that thing. That is what is required. But you hear what JD said, right? It was just a stunt. It was just symbolic. And it has no real effect. That's what JD is saying. But if they thought so, if the members of the Knesset thought so, they will not bring it, would they? They will not bring it. If the members of the Knesset thought so, they will not waste their time voting for it. If they thought that all this was just a political stunt, if they thought that all this was just public charade, like it had no real effect, they won't bring it, would they? The reason why they were debating or they even brought something like that into the Knesset was because they want to see how far they can push. They want to see the reaction from leaders around the world. They are telling you what they would do. They want to create this atmosphere where people already know what their plans are, so that when they finally match actions with word, people will be like, well, they said it before. We knew about it all along. It's okay. They should go ahead. They want to condition our minds into knowing that a day will come when they would annex the West Bank. They've taken so much out of it already. So I think annexing it completely wouldn't be a difficult thing for them to do. Wouldn't be a difficult thing for them to do. We are in a very sensitive moment in history when you will expect leaders or elites to be more cautious with what they do or say. People are still grieving on what is going on in Gaza. And to think that members of the Knesset would understand this and not bring something as shameful as plans or bills to annex the West Bank. To think that they will have this sense of importance, or they'll have this sense of how fragile things are right now. But you'll be wrong. You'll be totally wrong. And one more thing. What is the Arab League doing? What are the Gulf nations doing? What are they doing? If there's one thing I have learned during my adult years, is that never compromise. Never compromise. When you start compromising, it never ends. It never ends. When you start giving an inch on something, the other person, your competitors, your opponents, see this as a sign of weakness, and they will never stop pushing for more. They never stop. When the Arab nations or the Gulf nations decided to start working with Israel, decided to start recognizing Israel, Israel saw a weakness in them, and Israel has been using this weakness against them. If not, why would Israel bomb Qatar? And remember, bombing Qatar, a sovereign nation, is an act of war. We all know that, right? Bombing Iran, a sovereign nation, is an act of war. You know that, right? Bombing Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, these are all acts of war. You know that. But what did the Arab nations do? Nothing. They did nothing. It was the same thing that happened in Africa during the Obama's war in Libya. I call it Obama's war because he was the president of America when all this took place. And I hold him personally responsible for what Libya has become. He and Hillary Clinton, they totally ruined Libya. They did that. And I hope a day come when they face what they did in The Hague. I'm sure that's just a wishful thinking, but I hope so. I saw this video where the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, was in the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He was doing a speech, and he said that before NATO invaded Libya, a few African leaders wanted to go to Libya to talk with Colonel Muammar Gaddafi to try to persuade him to step down. They were in an helicopter. They were in a helicopter going to Libya when they were called by NATO. I don't know whoever was in charge of NATO, and they were told that there was a no-flight zone in Libya and that they have to turn around and go back. And when he said so, the other leaders were just laughing. To them, it was funny. And I was like, you guys are leaders. You guys are elites. And we, the people, depend so much on you people. We, the people, believe that you guys are there to represent our interests. And when you guys say things which are very, very serious, and you guys just laugh like it was a comedy show, that is really painful. That is really, really painful. I particularly was very, very offended. They just laugh. NATO is a foreign body, mostly in Europe. Africa is a different continent. What concerns NATO in Africa, I have no idea. But they came to Africa, they destroyed Libya, they destabilized the nation, they create two puppet governments in Libya. And since from 2012 till date, 13 years, if my maths is correct, Libya has known no peace. Libya is in ruined. The Libyans have lost everything. Why? African leaders sat there and watched. That is why they did nothing. It is the same thing with the Arab League or the Gulf nations. Palestinians are being squeezed to the bone. They are being starved almost to the point of death. Gulf nations don't do anything. Arab nations are not saying anything. Muslim world is not saying anything, or maybe not doing anything. Isn't that a big shame?